welcome back to another episode of Resurrected Metal Shaping. In the shop on this episode, I've got a Falcon front end and I'm going to be doing a 2-inch reverse cowl all the way through on this thing, but keeping with that original styling that's here on this bonnet. Now my customer has gone through and he's made up this nice little stainless steel part in here where he's chosen a mesh that he likes down here in the rear, and he's done a good job of it and it fits up really good in here when it's bolted up. So it's a bit of a brush finish at the moment. I think that it may be polished up and everything when it's done, but these are fitting great and it's going to help me with my design that I want to do down in through here. Now having these bolted in is going to be able to set my heights for the 2-inch rise that's going to be going through all the way, but I need to cut all this off first and then cut it down in on the back side as well, cut it through here in the front. And the shape from the rear back, that can pretty much stay the shape that it is because it's going to be consistent and it's a low crown from there back. But from the front, going through here, down into the front, we're going to have to really crank that shape around a little bit through here, which when I cut this up, I've got to shrink these edges, change it a little bit, and then we're going to have to make some pieces to go in here to meet up to this original panel through here. And then the same with down in the side. I'm going to have to make new bits which come up, matching the radius here on the back of this part, and then going to a nice taper down in through the back where that reverse is going to be opened up in the rear. So we pretty much need to get the grinder out, start cutting this thing, and then shape it and do our design as we go, making this thing look appropriate, original, but 2-inch reverse cowl all the way through. I've shaped up the whole front section up in through here using my template so I can get both sides equal. And then I'm running Clecos underneath up here. Then that way as I'm taking this off and on, I can go to the same spot. But I'm gonna have to weld up the holes that are in this piece here and then mark out a center point that's in here into there, and I'll drill a hole through there into the sheet and be able to Cleco and keep this in position while I pattern this out and make a section to come into here. And as that's come up, it has made it a little bit shorter just up in here. So I am gonna have to move that line because that's now a longer point from here up to there. So I'll change that line, and then I've got to put a bit of a step in this piece here that comes up in here and just fill that zone in, making this all one piece up in here. But with the hole that I'm gonna be drilling into here, there is going to be a pin that goes up into there. So that pin will be welded in later and everything will line up because I have Clecoed it in there. But that pin is going to be the stud with the thread that actually holds this piece into here. I've got to do one here, and I think probably a couple pins on the back. But once this front is sort of done and together, we can start shaping up the rear, getting that rear bit looking good. But the main part is getting these into position, everything lined up, so then everything can flow through. But we'll go through, make this whole front section in here and move into the rear. It's quite a tight radius for the section, so I am using the mini wheel with these nice tight dies and then running it through with a bit of low pressure on there, and then just a bit of force downward and sort of bringing that down, adding that little bit of shape. The reason for the low pressure is so that it's not overstretching the material there, because it needs to be stretched a little bit, but not very much. And then I'm gonna have to kick shrink it, stretch this area down in here at the front as well. And then so that can sort of fall away, and where that falls away needs a bit of stretching in there. A little bit of twisting as well while I shape this, but that's what I'm doing down in here for this section. So the front end of this build, everything is fitting in that I need up in here. It is all fitting to what I want. And then I've done a little bit of a step in here so I can follow through with that line that's already existing in here, and then clear coat everything up just so the whole front end is a bit more rigid for me to be able to build and shape the rest of this backside. Now, we're going to be just over about 2 inches, I think. I tried 3 inches and 2 inches at the rear. 3 kind of looked like it was diving into this section in here a little bit, but I have shot a laser off this point down to where the skin is here. That's about 60, I think it was about 62 mil. We're looking just over that 2 inch all the way through. So I am thinking I'm going to do a template off this and follow this line that's in here. We're going to follow that line all the way through. So I'm going to make a template here and then just sort of set it up through there. Then I can kind of get a little bit of a visual of what it's going to be like running through here. And then we'll shape these sides up, do both sides following that line all the way through, set up both sides, clear coat in and everything. And then we can start hammering up that center section and then getting this to look quite nice. So I have done a line all the way through here, which isn't how wide it will be. It'll actually, the width of it will pretty much be where this roll is here. So that's what your width is going to look like, but that's just where it's going to come down and then sort of come back the other way and then sort of join and be able to weld to the skin in through that section there. So that's pretty much just for me to do some templating and that sort of thing. I've set up those lines. So then that way we can do that template off here, follow that line, set it up all the way through and have a look at how this is going to look and then start shaping it. made the template off this front section up in here, did a template, then I could make stages all the way through, kind of like using a buck. And then I have done the blank and shaped up one side. We are going to run through and shape up the other side, but I've got this radius gauge, and this is the shape that I needed all the way through. So it was number 10 on my sweeps, and then that sweep through there is exactly what we need, running all the way through. But as you can see, if you look down into here on the back side, these are those little stages that I've used. And then when I'm shaping it, I put the tape on there, which is a fiberglass reinforced tape. So that tape is good for me to make my pattern, mark out lines and everything without it sort of going all over the place. It's a bit more rigid for doing patterns, but then I can take that tape off and then use all of these exactly like kind of doing it on a timber buck or something. It's just another way to do it. You could use a wire form, you could use a timber buck, all that sort of thing. But this is just a quick, easy way for me to do it for this job. I'm not going to be doing repeatables of these, so this is the way I'm doing it for this one-off job. And then that's the shape that we need up in here. So now we are going to go and make the other side for it. This does need a bit of fine-tuning here, but basically going to do the other side, get everything matching up, and then power hammer out the center section with a couple little lines that we'll get into later. But there's two kind of radiuses that we're doing here. One's got less curve, one's quite a tight one. So that tight one on the mini wheel, and then the bigger curve that's up in here, doing it on the bigger wheel. And these lines that I've marked out, they're just reference points of where the main part of the shape is that I need to turn. So down in here, turn that lip, tiniest bit of stretching down there, barely anything. You could just wheel that bit of stretch into it, or just give it a little love tap on the shrinker stretcher. And then up in here, rolling that top side, little bit of shrinking up in through the top, and that'll make the side. So we'll get the other side done, and we can start moving into doing the center section. So same thing as doing the front section, a little bit of light pressure, and then just kind of bending that around a little bit for this tight bit. And it does have a little bit of curve to it. It isn't just straight, it curves to the same shape as the bonnet. So on these little lines down in through here, that's what I'm following. And then just kind of bending that around, giving it a little bit of a wheel on the edge, which is stretching that material out. And then that way I can follow the line that I need, and we'll wheel this bottom up nice and tight, then move into the next bit. We're going to be jumping over onto the big power hammer to hammer up this center section. Now this is the layout that I use. A lot of people use this layout. You can wheel it this way, you can run it on the power hammer, but I love doing low crowns on the power hammer. Just nice to hold. You can have two hands out here, use your chest, swing it onto the dies. A lot less awkward, especially if you're on your own, to be on the hammer as to what it is on the wheel. You can wheel this sort of thing, but I am hammering it. Now, I've got my grid here in the center, second grid, third grid. A A lot of guys do it this way. I've done it this way for a long time. But this first grid, you want to work in here, move on into your second grid, work through there and back over the center, then your third grid, and then work the whole way. Then that way, you've worked the center 3 times, and then 2 times here, and 1 time on the edges, and then that'll just slowly bring your crown up and make it nice and equal. If you are doing something smaller, you can just wheel it up and not have to do the grid pattern on smaller things. But with experience, I kind of know where I'm going and running that sort of thing. But to get it nice, smooth and consistent on something bigger, this is the best way to go. So sometimes you don't need to do the grid depending on size and experience, but then also running a grid just makes it really nice and easy to hammer up. And this is equal and the same all the way through. But depending on what you're doing, if you had more shape down here, you'd move this box down through here compared to what it would be there, depending on where that high point of your crown needs to be, is where the center of your box would be in that sheet, depending on what you're doing. But this is equal all the way through, so this is the way that I want it. It is a little bit of a lower crown, so I may not run the hammer as hard, but we're just going to hammer this up, run this grid, get the center bit done, and there's a couple of body lines that need to run through here and kind of taper away, and then we'll run into that next, but we need to get our shape in first, so we're going to jump on the hammer. I've worked this center section. Once I've worked this one here back over there, that'll be the second one in the center, one there, and then when I come out from here and then pass over the whole lot, 3, 2, 1, nice and easy. What you can do here as well, when you hit the halfway point, flip the sheet over, work from there, keep working through, then that way it's a little less awkward for you to be hammering. The body line that I need to put in this panel now, it is a bit tapered, so it's deeper at the front than it is at the rear. And I've been sussing out my hammers, don't really have a hammer, I don't really want to sacrifice this one, but I've got no time to run to the shop and go and get another one. So we're going to sacrifice this hammer and weld on a little piece down into here. Then that way I can do a bit of hammering up into this line and then get that line going. So I've fortunately got a spare hammer. This one, not going to use. This is my very first hammer that I had, so that one's staying in really good condition. But I'm going to have to go and buy some spare hammers so I can modify some hammers. It is good to have a few cheap spare hammers. This one, don't really want to do it with. I would prefer to do it with the cheaper one, but I'm going to weld a little piece up onto here. Then that way I can get that shape that I need, and it's got a nice little radius to it, and I can start hammering that line from where it goes deeper up into a bit of a taper. What I've got here, using the dolly, and I've got two lines here. I've got the one line going through, which is the straight line, and then I've got my taper line, which is a little bit wider down here, and then it tapers off up in here, giving me something to follow. Running the dolly on where that top line is, and then blocking it in with the modified hammer, blocking that in, and then working all the way along, getting that line in, and then I can flip it over, crisp up this top line, use the bolster chisel, and I've marked that line where it needs to be on the back. Crisp that up, knock that in all the way. I'll be able to work it and finish it off with this, and be able to put that in and sort of knock that and sort of smooth it up, and then might have to give it a little bit of a file just to neaten that up and get it nice. But the main thing, you want to mark that back line as well, and where that line's going to be, where you're going to run the bolster and come back through and crisp that line up, because where the dolly is, you just got to hold it roughly where you sort of know where that line is, get your main bit blocked in, and then it's all just crisping it up and then making it all smooth and nice afterwards. But this hammer's working well, and now I've just got to do an absolute heap of hammering and block that all in, and then do the other side. Bonnet sides in through here is all hammered up, but down in the back, there's going to be a little bit of overhang. So I'm going to put a little bit of shape in there, which is pretty much almost 45, and then just a tiny bit of radius to it just to add a bit of style. So that does have the overhang. I've trimmed it back, laid some tape on in here, and left it with about a 10mm flange. That way that can fold over, have a little bit of strength in through the back of this. And yeah, so that's sort of how it is looking so far. And then up in the front, in around this area, it has had a little bit of a step sort of put in all the way through. So that way, when that part in the front, that can just sit in there, and then Tim's part that's in here just sits really nicely. And where the Cleco hole is, that'll be where a pin goes through, and then that can be bolted up on the back side. So this is how it's looking. We'll get that shape in the rear side of this bonnet, and then do a join up in here and get this mounted up into the skin. So with the bonnet skin all done, we're doing all the frame modifications. Now this center has had to be cut out for clearance and everything, but we're going to be keeping this area down in through here. So we've got a lot of strength still in the bonnet and still in this area, and kind of looking a little bit factory still with using those parts. But this has had to be cut off and then modified because that sort of overhang, and it is a little bit wider than what was there originally. So everything's sort of been closed off. I do need to shape a couple of things in here just to make it a bit nicer. And then I just want to add a little bit of something down in here as well to keep a little bit of strength in there as well, keeping this sort of tight and nice, still keeping with the factory finish and kind of looking as original as we can. But as you can see down in here, we've got this part here and it overhangs quite a lot. So it just needs trimming. And then down on that edge, folding over. There is a bit of a change in shape up in here, so we'll have to modify that a bit, but we're using the original pieces just to keep this looking pretty factory. And underneath here, there is going to be a skin made and then put on here because the piece that I chopped off is too short. So I'm just going to whip something up quick that goes into here. So when you're driving and you're looking into the back side of the bonnet, you can see a bit of a skin and you're not just looking at a bare frame. So that just finishes that off. So it's a bit nicer looking and everything too, because you want this to look as nice as possible. You don't want it looking just cut and square edges and everything. Keep everything looking original and how it should look. So we'll modify this up, get that frame done, do the skin, and then we can skin it back over and this bonnet will be complete. Let's take this to the hammer. That's how I've gone about doing the reverse cowl. So really nice look. Do like keeping it that original style still, but that has been picked up and it's out of the shop. And we're on to new builds coming into this new year. So I hope you guys have had a good Christmas and a happy new year. So tune in and watch these builds that's going to be coming next year. So got a lot of cool stuff coming in and some really cool builds that have been in the shop and will be starting next year. So that'll be an awesome one to do. Just been waiting on a few parts, so a few episodes come up, you will be able to see what that is. And we've got a bunch of new stuff, got some muscle cars, some hot rods, European exotics, that sort of stuff. So tune in, follow along, and continue watching all these builds.